Hello, everyone. I hope that you've all had a good week. It's feels like we've been in the off season for about 2 years now. I'm Brittany, and this is Nick next to me. How's it going, Nick?
Oh, it's a going.
Yeah, it's about as intense as it can be for an off season. We're here with the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network. You can catch us on Twitter with the MHRT Network, or you can catch us at the Cluster Puck Pod. You're the one. You're probably a pro at saying that by now. You say it a lot more than I do. But yeah, you can catch us Twitter, Facebook. We've got it all. We've got our Gmail. But we are here this week just kind of doing some house cleaning discussions. We're kind of going to go over some free agent talk. We've got our news with Landy kind of changes the outlook on everything. We don't have a whole lot of clarity yet, but we're kind of seeing what options we might have. We'll also go over some like trade asset options to go along with how we might keep or lose those free agents. And then we'll just kind of talk about some random little stuff. We've got the nuke issue. We've got the draft coming up. Obviously, it doesn't matter what podcast you are. You got to talk about Toronto a little bit, don't you?
A little bit.
That's just a given.
It seems like if you are a hockey podcast, at some point in time, you will talk about an original six team.
Yes, it is always about Toronto or Chicago. We'll get there too. So yeah, I don't think we've talked since we had the draft lottery last time. Is that right? Or did we?
Oh, is that? It feels like a long time ago. If not, it happened just before.
Time is like not. Time isn't a thing now. That
yeah, when you're an eliminated team, you just kind of sit there and just forget about stuff.
I did see. Did you see? So the Nuggets are killing it.
Yeah, they are.
McKinnon was at the game with Cogliano, and he didn't have a neck brace on. So that was kind of nice to see.
That was good.
It's definitely like a dynasty era for Colorado sports. It's crazy what the Nuggets are doing. It's also awesome. They're one game away from going to the
final. Game away from the final, and that game is tonight.
Yes, and they said that no basketball team has ever come back from, because like in hockey, it was like it had only happened 5 times to come down from being down 3-0, and in basketball, it's never happened. So pretty interesting. Hopefully they can. Is that tonight that they can close that out?
That is tonight, and boy, do I really want them to. I am. If it's not the Jazz, Utah native here, but if it's not the Jazz, it's the Nuggets for me. I have loved watching that team.
It's been a long time since the Nuggets were this good, weren't they? They've just been kind of a team that meanders into the playoffs and gets bounced like the Avs were. I mean, their trajectory has nearly followed the Avalanche, it seems.
Yeah, something very similar. I think it was about 4 years ago they played the Lakers in the Western Conference Final, and they ended up losing that one. But definitely a whole different outlook in this one. So we, the Avs Nation, wish the Nuggets the best of luck.
Yeah, it's super exciting. At least somebody's doing something. It's probably more fun if you live in Colorado, because I'm not a super dedicated basketball fan. But yeah, I would. I know, and that's of all teams, like the Lakers. It feels good no matter who's beating them, especially after that LeBron embellishment. Like that was one of the most atrocious things. I don't know if you saw that, but where he went down and he like propelled himself into someone and had a drink spilled all over him. It was honestly embarrassing.
But good on that Nuggets fan to hand him a towel. That was very nice of him.
You just let him bask in his shameful wetness. So we'll go into the Avs, and then we'll just kind of we'll see how much time we have. There's there's a lot going on, and none of it involves the Avs.
There was a lot that happened too, and it's like
and the
hard not to talk about it.
Doing nothing. They're just cruising along. Still no big news. But so we'll just kind of go in at this point, going into the summer and the off season. We have 5 forwards under contract. So we don't even have 2 forward line players under contract going into the next season. So we've got currently we were going in with $13.35 million in open cap space. And then with the Landeskog news that he will not be playing for the entirety of the year, he said playoffs are not out of the question, but that's irrelevant when it comes to utilizing his cap space. So that adds an additional $7 million in cap space, assuming that they LTIR him, which I don't see any reason in the world that we wouldn't LTIR him for the whole year.
Yeah.
And it is much better this year because we are going into the year knowing that the certainty is, while it hurts to know, it helps a lot to know. This waiting game of it's okay. We just got to get through Christmas and we're going to have Landy. We just got to get through February. We're going to have Landy. We just got to get to the playoffs and then we're going to get Landy. And then it's like, okay, actually Landy's not, he's not coming back. So we can enter this with $7 million, which puts us at $20.35 million going into the year, and a crap load of people. So landing out, we don't save on cap space while there is long-term injured reserve. We can utilize their cap, but when the playoffs hit, you have is the free agent playoffs. By free agency, you have to be terms. So you can't be over cap. So say somebody goes out in November and they're injured and you go sign. So if Landy goes out in November, he's injured and you go sign somebody for that $7 million or trade and you're $7 million over the cap, you have to eliminate cap space to be back under the cap prior to that free agency deadline. So it's a game. But the thing is, if you know that and after the playoffs start, the cap is irrelevant. So if you have somebody injured until the first game of the playoffs, you can use their cap up until the playoffs. So that's the whole Tampa going over cap, the Vegas Golden Knights. They're like 13 million over cap. It's either 13 or 20, but it's a lot over cap.
Yeah.
And that's the loophole that you'll hear. That's the LTIR loophole, is if you can LTIR someone until the playoffs, granted you have to play without them until the playoffs, if they can come back like Stamkos, or was it Kucherov or Stamkos? Stamkos came back, scored one huge
on that 2 years ago, I believe.
Yes.
But the downfall to that, if I could interject, is if you have that, if you are over cap, say like what Vegas is going through, or I think even Boston, because of some milestones that they hit, they're going to have to play the dump game where they cannot take that type of a repay again. So Vegas, for this time, they're going to be sellers because of how far over
they end up giving people away. That's where you have to give Pacioretty away and get nothing back, because it's a frantic dump to get them off.
Yep.
Vegas
Marc-Andre Fleury, same thing.
Yes. Vegas has frantically had to dump people often. And yes, you will, if you get a cap penalty, if you go over the cap limit, and it's super complicated, especially when you get into bonuses and stuff. But yes, there are penalties, and Boston has a lot of those issues coming up also with bonuses. So that also kind of affects their ability to dump and or trade players, because some of them, you get in a spot where you can't trade them before their bonus hits. If they have a bonus that's paid at a certain time, teams won't want to trade if they have to acquire them and then immediately pay a huge bonus. So that's where those contracts are kind of interesting. I wish they had like a class that you could take to fully understand them, because it gets very interesting. And there was, with the last lockout, they established a lot of new rules. And that's where kind of all of these big contracts coming to an end, where you had like Sutter, Parise, Crosby, Ovechkin. Those are some of the notable 14-year contracts coming to an end, with issues where they were backloading contracts, or if you're front loading, if you backload them, then you basically push somebody out, and you've got somebody Crosby getting paid $2 million for the first 3 years, and then $10 million for 2 years. And the last $10 million is not going to end up getting paid out. So there's a lot of issues with that. But the Avs we're lucky. And part of the reason we probably don't know quite as much is they're very conservative, and they're very moderate on the contract that they've signed. We haven't gone into anything crazy. Honestly, as far back as our GMs go, we haven't been known to make signings. So the two most notable free agents that we have, so we're going in with $20.35 million. We have so every forward other than the five that are signed, in Rantanen, McKinnon, Leckie, O'Connor, and who is in there?
Nichushkin.
Yes, which that's just a big question mark. Absolutely no new news. We could just knock that out. Nothing to it. There's been nothing released since the police report. So the two most notable free agents are going to be Comfer and Rodriguez. And I have struggled back and forth constantly with who do we prioritize. We've seen Compher's ceiling. It exists. It's there. It's not going to be broken. He had a very successful career year. Can that be, attributed to playing next to Mikko Rantanen? Yeah, I think so, considering a lot of his points derived from assists. But he did step up. He had a career year, but he did disappear in the playoffs. And I'm not sure how much that'll be taken into account. If you take a look at the center market for the free agency, it is very shallow. So there's a good chance that somebody like the Hawks have been considered over and over again. That's the big talk because he is from Chicago. The Hawks can afford to pay him $7 million. I mean, they're just looking to get some.
They have that ability. Yep.
And he is a Stanley Cup champion vet. He's a team guy. He's a good locker room presence. He's a stable player with a good background. So somebody might come out of the woodwork and be willing to pay him a 7x3, 7x4, somebody to put next to Senior Bedard here soon. So who knows? I would like to keep Compher. I think everyone would. He's a very well-established player. He's been with the Avs. It's hard to remember that he's part of our core. I mean, he came through.
He goes back a long time ago. Yep.
He's easy to forget because he tends to disappear, but he's been through the hard times. And he's always just been that standard middle six. You can rely on him to move up a little bit. Can't ask too much out of him. And then we've got Erod, who came to the Avs on a very deal. I think we got him at $2 million. And what he was looking to do was to have an establishing year that would earn him a longer contract with a higher pay for any team by just coming here and performing. And that's almost exactly what he did. He was one of our most stable players. I mean, how do you feel on Erod? Like, what's your temperature at the end of the season between those two?
With Evan Rodriguez, I guess I'll start there first. Is I want to see more from him. Like, I was really impressed with that year that he had. I mean, granted, he didn't play an entire season, so that's kind of why I want to just see what else we could do, because like a 3-year contract with him, I think is definitely in the realm of possibilities. I'm trying to look up exactly what we paid him this last year. $2 million, I believe. Yep, right there. So it's like if you give him like a 3x3, I bet you he'd stay happy with that.
And he did. He was very vocal, and they all do, but he was very vocal that he loved Colorado. He loved this opportunity. He liked the team. It seemed to be beyond like the hockey rhetoric. He seemed to truly mean that. They're all going to say that. Nobody, rarely, unless there's a very bad blood, but rarely will you see him talk bad. But he seemed to be really genuine in his desire to stay. So, even if you could get him on a 2.5, I'd like to see him on a team friendly, but it is hard when there is a high demand and the free agent market is not not hopping.
Yep. Well,
so who would you prioritize over the two?
That's the hard question because I want both of them to stay. But I feel like with Compher, I understand he had a career year, but it was also a contract year for him going into this off season. Then there is going to be a team out there that is willing to pay him what the Avalanche are not willing to pay because they kind of have this problem, kind of like what you said, is they have 5 forwards. That's it. So they need to be smart with that, and that might be one of the cap casualties that ends up getting claimed is JT Compher. So I think looking forward, my anticipation is that Evan Rodriguez stays, JT Compher goes. If we're able to get both, I would be more than happy with that. The only question I have on Compher is if he's worth paying $4 million, whatever, to have the same maybe production. Because his production doesn't quite scream
6s for him.
Yeah, the production from him doesn't scream anything above 4. So there's probably a team that'll throw 5 or 6 at him, kind of like with what you said. I think Rodriguez enjoyed his time here. I'm not to say that Compher didn't, but I feel more at ease thinking of how lucrative the Rodriguez contract could be compared to a comp for one when there's so many outside sources trying to seek his number,
Right.
So that's kind of where I sit on those two.
Yeah, and that's I think which one of the things is Landeskog's. This might be one of those places where Landeskog's LTIR might help us out. It might give us the option to keep Comfer, but we would have to weigh that if we decide to pay him more, it's probably going to be long term. So do we want to keep paying that out of that possible cap increase that we're going to have coming, or do we want to not sacrifice that future cap?
And you have to remember is Nathan MacKinnon is getting a payday,
Yes.
and that's and all of effectively Eric Johnson's money, what is going to go right to him,
So we can move into that. Kind of brings you to the next little hub of dudes. So we've got two that you can kind of link together. We've got JJ and we've got EJ. So we've got Jack Johnson, tenured vet. Clearly Colorado loves him. And then we've got Eric Johnson, who has been Colorado Avalanche.
Keeps on rolling. Yeah.
Yes. The guy, his body is just not there. He scored one goal, and that was in the playoffs. Is that one goal?
If they even credited that to him, I can't remember if
they did
or
not. I don't
know
if they took that away from him, but he it was not a good year. It was another year harder on his body than ever. Broken ankle. It's clear to see that he's certainly not a $6 million defenseman, but it's starting to come into question as to whether he's an NHL defenseman. So between him and Jack Johnson honestly had a significantly better year as far as stability goes. I am curious, do you see the Avs keeping both of them or one of them? They both kind of fall into that 6th, 7th defensive kind of guys. Where do you feel on those two?
I would say my gut tells me neither of them will be on the ice for the Avalanche next year. However, my gut also tells me they will both still be sticking around the Avalanche organization next year, maybe with like a front office job with EJ. He becomes some kind of a maybe development coach or some kind of an asset council type thing. But
because
I think
all the people on these lists, these two are probably the two most heart and soul of all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Because like with Jack Johnson, the guy is just a locker room charm. It's like when he's in the locker room, everyone's day is brighter and stuff like that. But at the same time, he's 36 years old, and with what he gave,
I'm not sure if everybody on the pod knows, listening Jack Johnson's story, he's kind of a guy that's still playing to make a paycheck because he was a very highly touted prospect who made a buttload of money, and his parents bankrupted him. His parents stole almost his entire beginning wages, and so he's playing because he declared bankruptcy and he basically had to start over as a full-grown adult. So that also might make like a front office job more appealing for him too. He's a big dude with a big body, and it's hard to play that long.
Heart too.
But he's also he's a smart player who plays very stable and may make his body last more so than EJ.
He'll always play the safe game.
Yes. Maybe for a league min, it might be something worth keeping Jack Johnson on as a 6th or 7th defenseman.
Yeah. So if they do stick, let's play that game. Let's say both JJ and EJ stick around. It's a veteran minimum,
Absolutely.
And my only concern with that, though, is that depth as soon as they're on the ice. Maybe they maybe not even get 10 minutes per game, It's are you really willing to sacrifice keeping them there versus if you put them in a front office job, they still have money flow through.
Right.
And you probably could find somebody younger, much younger, that would be willing to take that kind of a pay and maybe even get more of an output. So, it's hard to say, 36 and 35 respectively, but yeah, with the age that they've got, I think it's kind of the end of the skating days for them, and probably
I really think that
Johnson, they're lifelongers,
It would be really hard to see, not that we don't care as much, but Eric Jack Johnson hasn't spent his entire career with us. He went to Chicago and came back. He's been slightly transient throughout the end of his career, but it'd be really hard to see Erik Johnson retire somewhere else. I just hope that he either gets that league min deal without a starting role, or he retires, because I don't want to see him go through going somewhere crappy, like him going to the Hawks and him playing limited minutes with the Hawks and then just getting hurt and fading into the sunset. And I would like better for him, but we'll see. He also loves playing hockey, so I'm curious to see how that rolls out. So that's those two, and then so we can just kind of go through the free agent acquisition, or the trade deadline acquisitions, and just the people that aren't as pressing. So you've got Eller and Nieto, and then we can just kind of loop in Helm and Malgin. Let's do Malgin, Nieto, and what's his face, Eller. So those are three. Malgin, I'd say we're a little bit more attached to him than Eller or Nieto, which we are attached to Nieto, but he was just really a non-factor for the most part. It is hard to gauge because there was no consistency in lines. Matt Nieto should not be in the second line. Are there any of those that you see them reaching to keep, or is it just kind of a matter of cost effectiveness? If we can get them for $2 million, just kind of see who is willing to take a deal to stay with us.
Yeah, I kind of am on that train as well. I believe Dennis Malgin is a restricted free agent, which that's a little bit better for us. So I feel like we have the ability to at least retain him with the power that we do have.
Which he would be my priority of the three to keep. I think that there's a higher.
He's got the most promise, out of the three between Malgin, Eller, and Nieto. He would be the one that I would probably seek after first, considering he's still very young, but he came onto the scene in a flash, and he just really impressed me. So being a restricted free agent in Malgin, I would say try to put the money there. Obviously, we don't want to go too high, right? And hope that and then hope that he produces to that extent. But I would say give him something that it would tie him over for 3 years, 4 years even, and just see what production you can get. Right.
Yep. Especially when it's not like we paid anything for him. He was was he a waiver claim, or was that was the trade for?
He was the trade for Dryden Hunt.
Yes.
And
so
like I said, that was a genius move, if I might say, on the Avalanche part to have Malgin on the team. It was a beautiful addition. So with who are we going?
And I agree with Ali. Toronto basically laughed him out of there. I'm a big Steve Dangle podcast listener, and there was no appreciation for Malgin. And there was times where Malgin, I mean, he had some brief, brilliant moments. And if you can capture that and make that something regular, I just don't. He never felt like a huge liability. I mean, he's not McKinnon, but what are we paying him? Is he league? It's not much. So
I'd say like $1.5 million, $2 million for 3 years, 4 years even. Like, I think that'd be an awesome deal, considering just seeing what a full year with him would do and stuff like that. I'd be really excited to see. With Lars Eller, 34, he's up there in age, but he's a big body, but he's still got gas left in the tank. I would like to see if we could keep him, but it'd be difficult to do, just considering he spent all of his career in Washington. I bet you the Caps would want him back. Right. Difficult to say, especially with what he was making versus what we asked the Capitals to retain. He also might be one of those cap casualties where you'd have to go after another fourth line center, So personally, I'd like to, but I'm going to say Lars Eller is a little too out of reach for us.
Yeah, I think unless he offered something very, very team friendly. Also, if you were anticipating Helm being done, that might sway it a little bit. as with him being a fourth line center. But I think he'd have to be very, very team friendly. Otherwise, it would just be worth it to make Ben Myers and stay as a fourth line center.
Mm-hmm.
There may be younger options that are better if we're not paying him the bare minimum. So, and at his age, he's looking for, probably his last contract, if it's going to be of any time. So,
yep. So if they make something done, that would be awesome, because I think a full season with him is definitely nice, because on the face-off and on the forecheck, anything in a scrum, that he was the guy, and he did a really great job of and that was what it was expected of him, right? You weren't expecting him to go out and drop 30 points in 12 games or anything like that, So if there is a possibility to keep him as that big body, that doesn't mind getting into the trenches and stuff like that, I would say absolutely go for it. With Matt Nieto,
that's another
we hit the tennis ball back to San Jose. Honestly, I mean, he was really good for about the first 10 or so games. Had a couple of goals in between there and a few assists and whatnot, but then just kind of poof, disappeared. And so it was just kind of like, well, cool, thanks. So again, great guy, but
I don't even know what his contract was.
I bet you we could look it up here. This last season, he was $850,000.
Okay, so I mean, as far as just being a warm body for third or fourth line, he might be worth keeping around. Also, and I'd imagine there's no way he could anticipate a raise after last year. So I guess it's just going to come down to, do we have better options? A lot of it'll come down to seeing what we're willing to pull up from the Eagles, and we've got those college signings. Poland, is that what it is? Poland. I'm not sure where they stand on a lot of those guys, and they haven't really been very forthcoming as to what they anticipate for their future roles, and they may not delegate those until after they decide what to do with the free agents. I don't know. Obviously, I'd imagine that those kind of work in tandem, deciding future roles for the younger guys versus figuring out who we're going to bring in. They can't just say, this is who we're going to bring up and then fill around them, or bring people in and then figure out who they're going to bring up. But it'll be interesting to see, because we do have some of our talent pool. Most of it is older and on the cusp of being ready or not being ready. So then the other, we got two more kind of groups. So we've got Helm and Cogliano. So, and they kind of fall into the same category as well. They
grandpas.
Yes. So we saw Helm. He played 11 games this season, I believe.
That many?
I said.
I thought he played like 4.
That's what it felt like. Because did he get one playoff game? And then
I don't
remember.
Not a lot,
which it's not like we were paying him a ton, but that's a big risk that you're taking when you're paying old man $1.5 million, something like that. And then Cogliano, who put in some hard minutes for us this year, but they did say that he had a sprained AC, and he, as we all know, broke his neck. So at some point, guys got to say, I think I'm good. But with him, if he did want to come back, I don't know what you think about as far as priorities go, but I certainly think he's somebody that they'll be looking to take back. He is a huge penalty kill role. That's going to be a big spot to fill. And he is a huge locker room. He is a big locker room guy. He's a leader on the team, and without Gabe for the entirety of the year, that might be somebody that they really consider bringing back just to help contain that.
Yeah, I would agree on that one. I think with Darren Helm, 36, didn't play.
Right. Is that a risk?
He didn't really play. Yeah. I think we just let him go. That might, and it's not anything against Helm. I love the guy. I'd love for him to come back, that kind of stuff. But I think for what it's worth, you could find a fourth line center that could do more than what Helm was putting out there, So I think he's the one you let go. With Cogliano, I feel like he's got one more year left in him at a veteran minimum. Because you're exactly right. The guy has the no give up mentality. He's the guy. I mean, he stole all 8 of his goals, from tips in
He's a
and breaking
goaltender,
his
though. He
fingers
busts his
and
ass every game. He plays the dirty
exactly.
goals like no one, you don't see people.
So I think
it's so
you get
cool.
Cogliano one more year,
Yeah.
for a veteran minimum, and who knows, he might even say, with that broken neck, it's too dangerous out there, and you call it. But
yeah,
like
I said, if I was his wife, that's exactly where I would be.
Okay.
So then our last two, and these are other two. So we've got Erod and Comfer are our big unrestricted free agents. So then we get to our restricted free agents, which they both have their controversies of their very own style. So you've got this seemingly underperformed new hook that hasn't lived up to the grandiose expectations that we put on him unfairly, if you were to ask me. And then we've got Mr. Bo Byram, who is eventually, should he be able to stay healthy, going to go down as possibly one of the best defensemen that ever graced the NHL. But in 3 seasons, he has barely cracked 100 games. So his health is the giant concern. They're both restricted free agents. From what I understand, the Avs have tried to re-sign Byram. So I'm not sure what the sticking point was. And I would be curious to see when they tried. Like, it doesn't seem like he's had any stretches long enough that they would have, maybe they tried to snag him for cheap during his injured times, because your value is not high when you've only played 30 games in 2 seasons. But it's a tough choice with them. I'm not sure how you're feeling. I'm kind of seeing like a higher end bridge for both of them to get into that next cap spot. Hopefully a longer one for Byram. I would like to see like a 3x3 or a 3x4 to get us into that next cap era. And the risk it, if you go shorter with that and he has a huge year, we may end up having to pay him way more in 2 years. But also if you sign him for too long and he gets injured and he's done, then
that's the game that you have to play, is the future. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I am more comfortable in signing Bo Byram, and I'll just be upfront with that. I like the idea of a 5x4 or a 4x4. I feel like $4 million is kind of the limit to pay for him, because he would be then about 25 years old, 26 years old, and then you could give him his real big cash out, right? And by then you'll have known exactly what he has been producing. Now, kind of like what you said, is after that 4 million or 4x4 or 5x4, whatever is up, then who goes after him? It's going to be who's got the most money. Maybe he stays a homer and loves the organization. He might have won another cup by then. It all depends. So if his health is great, his production soars, I think you rock something great for 5 or 4 years. And try to just win as many things as you can.
Of our window is what it would really get us through.
Yep. Now with Alex Newhook, I want to keep him. So I'd say we offer him, because he's a restricted free agent, right?
Yeah.
We offer him, I think that one would be probably a 3.5.
Yep, that's exactly. I've got 4 by 3.5 written down, and
4 by 3.5 I think is the right move.
And it'll age well, and you can have him as possibly even an asset down the road to trade should he pop off. To have him getting paid 3.5, he might be something that we can utilize down the road. The contract can age really well, or he'll probably just continue on in mediocrity as a middle 6, and 3.5 for 4 years isn't crippling.
It's not going to kill you. Yep. Because that's JT Compher money from this last season, right? So if he continues to be just like JT Compher, I'm comfortable with that.
Exactly. And that's what people want to act like he's such a massive failure, but just playing as a person could be expected doesn't make them a massive failure because they didn't take off into stardom in their third year in the NHL. He's had really successful, relatively successful seasons. They're just not what we had prayed might happen. But I would like to get him signed at least, because then he can be an asset for trading down the road if we wanted to.
Exactly. And there's always the game of what if, right? Because if, let's say, we get that contract signed with him, he's 22, like, so say you get a 4x3.5 or something, like, signed with him, and he goes off and has a 30-goal season,
right.
something like that. Well, now you guys look like geniuses for the next 4 years,
Exactly.
so
Yep.
him and Byram are kind of in that same suit where they were brought in together, and they both have all kinds of this potential, but there's always just that little tiny thing that's hindering them. With Newhook, it's just about getting out of his shell, this kid shell, and
Yeah.
with Byram, it's staying healthy. If
Yep.
they're able to overcome those types of problems, I think it's a slam dunk for the Avs organization to keep those two guys, because
Right.
the sky's the limit with both those kids.
Right.
It's outrageous.
And overpaying them for the beginning of their contract I think it's worth the risk for the value that you may have at the end of the contract, especially once the cap goes up. Having guys being paid that low is going to be super valuable down the road.
Yes.
I'd like to keep both of them. I think it's far too premature to give up on Newhook. It baffles me how people act like we can't even give him away. I'm just not on this like Newhook hate train, especially when they're so in need of warm bodies that aren't liabilities, and he's just not a liability. And I'd rather risk it on young people that we haven't seen their ceiling over old people that might hit their rock bottom at any point in the season. So I think we're kind of agreeing, like a moderate bridge. And then they both might be due some big, huge money down the road.
Yep.
But it'll be nice.
Then our cap will hopefully be $100 million, and everything will be great. And
yeah, at this rate, the cap won't even exist the way people are
kidding. We'll go into the luxury tax era, just like the NBA.
I don't know, man. I just don't know. That'll get Toronto their cup finally.
There you go.
That's all of our free agents. That's Newhook, Cogs. Yeah, that's all of them. I think the next thing I'm kind of thinking on is we could just kind of talk about, so I'm not sure if you've been weighing on, everybody's got a million different ideas. We can just kind of go over free agents in the market that you're interested in or intrigue you. And then maybe some assets that we have that we might consider trading. Or just some different ideas. It's so hard right now with the uncertainty with Nuke, because that would change a lot if we had to also eliminate him and add his cap hit to losing him. I don't think is financially beneficial for the Avs, because we're not overpaying him for what he does when he is healthy and present. So ideally I would like to see him back and playing well, but we have no idea at this point, and I'm curious to see if they'll have those answers before they go into the draft, because you would think that that's going to affect it a lot. So I'm curious when they make their decisions if that'll tell us, whether Nuke is coming back without them actually having to tell us whether Nuke is coming back.
Yeah.
So what free agents, is there any that is standing out for you?
So there are a couple that do, I guess, stand out to me. So as far as, I guess, so there were I think, what was that, 11 free agents, whether restricted or free, that we talked about. I believe we said 6 were coming back, at least in our world, 5. So it's, for me, I like I don't know if he's a free agent actually, but let's
or not free agents. If you just need to put together a whole trade package, you can go for it, because if you want to, we don't have a lot of assets, so that's just something we'll have to bear in mind. But yeah, if you got a full-blown trade requests, go for it. So
there's 2 players. Well, really there's 3, but I think one of them's kind of just an impossible shot. The 3 that I have in mind, let's talk about it first. The first one is Elias Lindholm. That name has been linked to the Avalanche for a couple of weeks now, and I think that would honestly be a really interesting fit, just because of his play style and the fact that he hadn't had a really great year this last year. The Flames, they might be looking to kind of start for a little fresher face, maybe not a full-blown rebuild, but I think Lindholm might end up being maybe like a cap casualty that we could offer something in return, something like that. I like that idea of trading for him. I don't believe he's a free agent. Who knows? I just like the idea of Lindholm in an Avalanche jersey. I think it would be a very interesting fit.
And it's hard to know. I think they're talking with Brad. I don't know who they're. They haven't named like any GM information or anything yet, have they? So they're GM. I would imagine by the draft they'll want to get that settled in, and it'll be interesting to see who they decide. Every coach and GM has a different vision for the team, and they might the guys like that might become disposable. Ew, Allie, no, sure. I wouldn't trade Cale Makar for the core four from Toronto.
That's funny. So the second one, and speaking of Toronto, is William Nylander.
Yeah.
Now that one is one that has picked up a lot of steam recently, and I honestly am thinking that's not actually a bad idea. That is your replacement for Landeskog as far as your production's concerned and stuff like that. He would absolutely fit on your top six, no problem. My only concern with that is I believe he's going into the last year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think he has 1 year left on his contract.
I believe that's what it is.
One of the ones that's going into, is it him? Austin and Marner have a no move clause that kick in on the 1st of July.
Something like that. So if the transaction is going to happen, it has to happen during that little window. And here's the other thing is he is right at that $7 million mark. Right. So he would be that 1 year replacement from Landeskog, and he would replace everything: the price, the production, the line, everything. Right? It's like a 1-to-1 fit. The only question then becomes, he's going to be what, I think 28 at that point. He's going to be wanting to cash in right there because that's going to be his last window to do that. Could the Avalanche secure that, or is this going to be a 1 year? I don't want to call it a Band-Aid, but just a 1 year guy like a Darcy Kemper.
Right?
You brought him in, he did great, he leaves.
And that's tough because
it'd be too bad to have
that. They don't
exactly
like guys that they can't sign, that they don't know they're going to sign.
Exactly. So I'm kind of, like I said, I think he would fit the Avalanche system great, way better than a bunch of other free agents.
Probably the one that they want to keep the most because Marner definitely has the no move clause, and Austin Matthews does also. And essentially, it's coming down to if they don't sign Matthews by July 1st, they have to trade him. Otherwise, he can walk in free agency. And could you imagine letting him walk in free agency for nothing? I don't know.
And then he goes to the Coyotes and saves the franchise.
Oh man, what a time to be alive. Could you imagine? I think it was on DNVR today that Jesse was just like, hear me out. What about Austin Matthews to the Avs? And it's like, okay.
I'd love that. I'd be more than okay with that.
Could you imagine him just walking in free agency? And so then it just comes down to what will a team pay him? And that's, I don't know. Does the cap supposed to go up significantly after next year? Are we looking at
supposedly? I mean, it goes up. It was supposed to go up a bunch this year. That's what Gary Bettman teased, but it didn't. It goes up $1 million. But supposedly not this season, but next season, it's supposed to. I don't exactly know how much. So it's going to be a numbers crunch for this year just to kind of keep things there until you have some breathing room. But again, if William Nylander is the right fit, I would be beyond thrilled to have him. I think it would be awesome. Now here's next one. This is my dark horse. This is I might be the only one that thinks this, to be honest with you. He is a free agent, and that is the Avalanche signed Timo Meier.
Oh, he is a free agent. So
he is a free agent, and he was at $6 million. Didn't do what with Jersey as soon as they traded for him. So maybe you fit him in that category of
Yeah, because they're not. Isn't his qualifying offer like 10 million? They're not going to be able to keep him.
Something around there, yeah.
I mean, depending on
So
what
I'm
he's
thinking,
for.
I'm just thinking if you could get him for 7 for a year, I mean, or even longer, and try to hope that salary cap jumps significantly that second year.
It's scary because that's where this cap thing is a scary thing. So what's happening to make the cap jump is the escrow being paid off, right? And so we know that that's going to happen, but we don't have a solidified number of how much it will go up. And the reason that Toronto is so screwed right now is because they went all in on the core four with the anticipation of the cap going up as it was supposed to, but then COVID hit. I mean, and you couldn't predict that. So they made their moves banking on that, and this is where it kind of shows you that you have to delicately weigh how much you bank on the cap going up. So it's a scary line, but also you don't win Stanley Cups by not taking risks on people and money. So
Yep. And I guess with that being said, I might ask you the same question. Are there any free agents and or trades that you've been thinking about that might happen?
I have basically gotten my mind into like a complete pretzel about who I want and who I don't want, that at this point I don't even know like who plays in the NHL. I think my heart comes back to continuously, like if somebody said, who do you want? Like, and it was like without having to worry as much about the contractual obligations as I want Ryan O'Reilly. Like, just bring him back. Like, who else could go for Game Landeskog other than our former captain that we still cherish? He's no like Matt Duchene. It's not like he left disgusted with us. Ryan O'Reilly still comes to Colorado, still hangs with the guys. He is 32, I think. So this leaves us in a position that he's essentially looking kind of for a contract, just like Landeskog just got, and he's not looking to take a 1-year contract. So
his would be some time. Yep.
Yeah. So we would have to take him either high for a short-ish term, like if you're looking at like a 5-year contract. He's not going to get paid. What was he getting paid before? Like 7 or 8 about Landy's.
It was 7.5. Yeah.
And so if you're looking at like bare minimum, if he was willing to take like 5, but he's not washed up. Like he was one of the only reasons that Toronto made it through to the next round. I mean, he played very well. He's very predictable. He's a hard worker. He's a good person. But that's just my guy. It's a pipe dream. And he might be one of those guys that we could bank on the cap going up, that once Gabe is back, he could be still a tenured, a mainstay with us. If we could get him for like 5 years, I would love to see that. It's kind of hard to know if that's a role he's looking to play after being the captain for the St. Louis Blues for like 5 years. Has he been? He's been there for a while.
Something around there, yeah.
And also, he might just want to go back to the Blues. Like, I don't know if he wants to stay there for a rebuild. It's hard to know exactly what he wants. It sounds like he has no intention in staying in Toronto. They probably can't afford him anyways, but that's my guy. I've kind of liked. It's hard to want to commit to project people with injury-prone pasts. After this last year, it's like we kind of want the healthiest people humanly possible. I do kind of like the idea of Jonathan Drouin. That's one that's kind of been tossed around a little bit. He's if Ryan O'Reilly, I just don't know about with him though, with the injury issues. And that's kind of, I don't know how heavily they're going to weigh with that on everyone, is like, we just don't want somebody questionable at all. But those are also where with him, he would be kind of that Erod thing where it's like, we can get them cheap for a year so they can have a prove it year where they can earn their worth and then sign a longer, higher paid contract because they've shown that they can do it again. Those are usually those hit or miss years. And hopefully we got all of those miss years luck out of the way last year, considering everything that went wrong. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. So hopefully we can hit. It'd just be nice with the guys that we signed to do a nice mix of very healthy and stable, and then not have to rely on the people that are question marks. I don't want that center spot to be a question mark. We need one more person in the lineup that's not a question mark. You know what I mean? Not a project, not and we just need to know that they're going to come out, that they aren't going to get injured the first time they get touched. We just need more stability in that lineup, especially if we are going to utilize our younger guys and bring some guys up to fill those spots.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess piggybacking off of that, these were forwards that we were talking about. What about defense? Is there any like a defenseman that you would want to go after or trade for or sign, anything like that? I have one in mind, I guess, while you're mulling that one over. And again, this is one that I'm thinking it's a long shot, but this is a Nick really wants this to happen type thing. And that would be to go and bring back Tyson Barrie.
Yes.
Because and I have actual good evidence to back this up. His highest production came when he was in Colorado, right? Yeah. He had a chemistry there that just it fit, it linked, everything was awesome. I bet you just off of pure joy of him returning alone, he would make Cale Makar try to keep those records, because it took him some time to break Tyson Barrie's records, because Tyson Barrie held a lot of those records that Cale Makar now has. So I think if you bring him back, heck, even stick him with Cale Makar on that top line, or even a second line with, whatever. I honestly think that would be a slam dunk move, because that would up your defensive shoring. Yes, he's not the most, how do I say, he won't be the most robust when it comes to pure defensive play. He's very Cale Makar-esque in the sense that he does more all around than more to focus on just one or the other as far as defense and offense. But I think that shores it up pretty good.
It might be something we might need to be thinking about the defense a little bit heavier, in that something that's been discussed a lot lately as being one of our biggest and most prominent trade asset is Devon Toews, which is painful to even think that could be an option. But the thing is Toews has 1 year left on his contract, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. And it's looking like there's just really no way that we could re-sign him. He's not old, but he's not young, but he's gonna get paid. He's getting paid $4 million, 4.1, something like that. We're trading him either in free agency deadline or trade deadline or in the summer is a huge asset, because a team getting him for $4 million is huge. I mean, he would go to a team and be their top defenseman.
Oh, no problem. Yep.
And the thing is, people are so heavy on trading Girard, but if we traded Girard and then lost Devon Toews in free agency, that's a pretty gnarly hit on our defense. So trading Toews is kind of a huge possibility at this point. So we might be looking even for more filler defensemen. And I think Barrie would be a great step in, as just, especially I don't know. I have never thought about if other teams are nearly as prone to this as we are, as bringing back our guys.
We love to bring back people. Yep. And I've been wanting him to be brought back ever since that Kadri trade.
That's when they traded him, I'm like, why didn't we trade something for him? Like, I didn't know he was even available.
Upset when that day happened. Oh, you have no idea. Oh, I was so mad.
So yeah, I mean, that might open some much larger doors for, who knows what kind of, people. It's not like we would trade him directly for a defense. We would probably be focusing on filling that T spot, or that second center spot, and then filling in. I think it's easier for us to fill in around with our defense right now, considering we have we're a little bit stronger on defense. But yeah, it's a very curious position to be in, because we don't want to let him walk either. Also, we don't want to trade him. I mean, obviously we'd love to keep Toews forever, but
it's a really difficult catch-22 to be in, for sure.
We are very guilty of having a lot of treasures on defense. That Toews was out of the ballpark hit, like home run. We have been so blessed to have him for $4 million for what, 3 years? So
I think it was 4.
It's ridiculous. The Islanders, they lose sleep over that every night, because that was one of those.
I cannot tell you how many times, whenever the Avalanche have played the Islanders or whatever, that whenever Toews is brought up, they always talk about the Islanders and how they lost big on this. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it makes me feel great, but it's like, okay, that was 4 years ago. Leave it alone. Like, it's done.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
stop.
Well, and also he
beating
wasn't
yourself
being
up over
talked
bad
about
ones.
then. I mean, the Avs have a knack for developing even adults, veterans to their max ability. So yeah, it's really hard to think about, but it might be our best option because we are asset short. We do also have a first round draft pick this year. It's like the 26th or 27th. Do you anticipate them keeping that, or is that something you see them trading as we need more of a
honestly, I feel like they keep that, because we haven't had a first rounder in what feels like 20 years,
Yeah.
So I think you're going to need to shore up your developments, at some point, and this would be the time to do it because I think as it currently sits, we have a first round pick this year, next year, and 2025. So it's like I would rather keep the one this year because I feel like you have the ability to play the money game right. Because as soon as that cap goes up, there's going to be all kinds of stuff being shuffled around as far as picks and stuff. So I think cherish this one while you have it because you don't have this year. You don't have a second, third, or fourth.
Yeah.
You do have a fifth, sixth, and seventh. So that first round pick makes it feel like a little bit more. I know, right? So I would say they keep it. Although it would not surprise me if they did use it in a trade of some sort.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like really, really anxious. I wish it was time already because I'm just beyond the Avs too. It's going to be absolute madness, I think, to see how everything shakes out, especially with the amount of like GMs changing who are going to have totally different ways that they want to run the team. And, Toronto's going to get a new coach and they're not new GM. And they're not attached to Austin Matthews. Like, those aren't his guys. So who knows where they might just say, I think Toronto's going to have something big. They're either going to shake it all up or they're going to do nothing beyond the GM. It's going to be bizarre. But yeah, Allie's asking about Taze, and that's one that just keeps coming up. It's almost somewhere between like, I am curious if now they'll keep him with Bedard, but I don't think he would even be around long enough to see Bedard make it.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if he's just going to retire.
That's kind of where I'm leaning toward, actually. Is
I'm not comfortable in investing a lot of money in him. I feel like once you hear a player that discusses retirement, I feel like once you have that in your mind, it's hard.
He's kind of mentally checked out. Yep.
Yeah, and he seemed like a worn man last year, and I know that the long COVID I just don't know that people who get it as bad as him ever have recovered entirely. So I don't know. I feel bad for the guy. And I know some people are still talking about Kane, but I don't know why I'm just like really soured on Kane. I don't know.
You could talk to Allie about that.
Yeah,
my wife. She'll tell you all about his postseason.
I don't think the Rangers anticipate keeping him. I mean, maybe he'll just go back to the Hawks because it seems like he might be one that could stick around long enough to see Bedard in his entry to the NHL. I don't know, but I mean, they're gonna have
passing of the torch.
Yeah, they need to get somebody because they can't. He's not going to be in the NHL. I mean, I don't think he would be in at the beginning of next year. I don't know. We'll see. But they're going to have to get people eventually, and it's going to be very interesting to see them start spending money and picks because those picks are going to start turning into bodies. So who knows what people are going to end up with at the end of this year. Kane, and that's like, it's so entitled, and part of me is him going to the Rangers and not to the Avs when it was so widely discussed him going to the Avs. I'm like, who wouldn't want to choose the Avs over absolutely anyone else? Like, I just couldn't even imagine who wouldn't want to be on my team. So I'm like, well, we don't want you either. And yeah, that's would be a decent mentor too. I just think he has a lot more fight left than Taze. And I don't know if that's just a weird perception that I have, but I think that he would be a lot better than Taze for that kind of position. Especially because if there's anything that Kane has done in his career, it's win shit. Like he has won things. So yeah, we don't have a lot of assets, but those are, Gerard, Newhook, There's even been some huge, wild, trade Byram for big names. It's been a while since we've seen them have any earth-shaking trades. I mean, I can't. When was the last trade that you were like, oh my god? So I don't think they're going to shake anything up wildly this year during the window. I don't think so. So the only last few things that I had left. So they don't do an injury report at the end of the year. So I went through and just tried to look at all the stuff that was released, and really not that much. They just said, and this is just like house cleaning. Francouz and Manson had surgeries. They'll be ready for camp. Lehkonen had a broken toe. Cogliano had an AC sprain and a fractured neck. I really wish that we would. Do you think that Makar had an injury that lingered into the off season, or at least
I'm sure everyone did. That whole 7-game series, you could just tell that something was off. And seeing how the injuries resulted throughout the season, it wouldn't surprise me if every single one of them had a broken something.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I did forget to mention the other small possibility that's being thrown out there is Francouz as a trade asset. We're only paying him $2 million. The thing is, he doesn't take much off our cap if we do trade him, and I don't know what his value would be on the market with his injury history, but that is another one thrown out there. How does that make you feel? Because some people are really bothered by it, which it is.
I mean, I like having Francouz just in the fact that he is the most reliable backup you can have.
Probably as good as you can have.
Exactly, as good as you can have, but at the same time, with the injury history, it's like you probably could go after somebody and develop them just like you have Francouz,
or
right?
Even a Kincaid. I mean, is having a Kincaid available all the time better than a Francouz available when he's available?
I know that's the tricky part. It's like, would you take that over getting someone new? So.
And it's hard to know if he has any value, because could he realistically be a starting goalie or even a tandem goalie?
I mean, he does. I mean, he absolutely does. I think you throw him at San Jose, and all of a sudden San Jose becomes a really good team.
But his body stand
with his body, that is the question, and that's where I struggle to say yes, because we haven't seen that proven. So that could be a name that just is a casualty that we have to say goodbye. We've had him for so long, and it's time to maybe just.
What's nice is we finish out. He's got 1 more year left on his contract, right? And we're only paying him $2 million. But people are throwing that out around like he's got trade value. So I don't really think so. But so the other two, I just have 2 more little things. Just 3 because we can hit the Toronto. But I did see. It's kind of interesting. So, did Jared Bednar even crack the top 5 for the Jack Adams Award this year?
I honestly didn't see. I only saw the top 3, and I said they just disrespected Colorado yet again.
I don't know what he has to do. It's unreal. It's honestly just unreal. But the good news is Cale Makar came in top 3 for the Norris. Were you surprised about that at all? A lot of people are kind of upset as he didn't have a limited season.
Truthfully, yes, I actually am surprised. But at the same time, I'm not, because he is just that good. It's like with the limited amount of games that he had, to have him do what he has done, it shouldn't surprise me, So obviously I'll take it, but at the same time, I was like, this is my personal opinion. I don't think it's going to matter. Erik Karlsson's winning it either way.
Oh, absolutely. Which doesn't matter if you're a negative 3,000.
Exactly.
So plus minus is relevant, but it
was a surprise, but a very welcome one, I'll say. So.
Yeah, I was surprised just that it happened, not that he belongs there.
Exactly.
It kind of bothers me. This is not the Iron Man Award. I don't know if there's what the specific amount of games somebody wants to see out of a player in order for them to be considered. But to me, it's proof that he's one of the best defensemen, no matter how much he's on the ice. It proves that while he is on the ice, he is always the best. He didn't have a teetering season with injuries. He doesn't flail. I mean, it's just, he's going to be recognized for his greatness, regardless of, the amount of presence that he has. I just think it's silly to eliminate him, especially when it's not like he missed the whole back half of the season in the playoffs, or he missed the whole first 2/3. It was an on and off thing, but while he was on the ice, he was elite, and he continues to be one of the best, if not the best defenseman in the NHL. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was interesting that Peter Boss said that he didn't vote for Cale Makar in his top 3. So I'd be curious to see who did and didn't. You know what I mean? Like who valued him
too.
Keep him in the top 3. So then one of the last orders of business, of course, we got to talk about the Arizona deal. So because it could ultimately affect us. So the Arizona rink plan was ultimately voted a no. So from what I understand, there's like 600,000 people in this voting area. 30,000 showed up to vote, and the vote was like 56% no. And they anticipated like a 10-point swing in their way, and it ended up being a 10-point swing in the opposite direction. And it sounds like it was mostly old people that voted. So this is one more thing of proof that like young people don't vote and we screw ourselves over stuff like that. But were you shocked? Because I was shocked. I didn't even realize that it was a possibility. It's a dump that they're turning into an ice rink, and they still didn't.
It was the stupidest thing. And mind you, the chatter that came after the vote immediately turned to, well, the Coyotes are going to relocate. Right. And Salt Lake City,
I was going to say,
miles north of me,
might be
ended up being one of the big 2 or 3 cities talked about.
So if Elliott's throwing it out there as the priority,
yeah, I mean Kevin Weeks even said that, like he gave him like an eyeball emoji or something like that. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, first off, it's not happening this summer. Nothing is happening this summer. They're still playing at Mullet Arena. I myself was very upset by this because to me they are the Arizona Coyotes, right? So for people to be celebrating this and stuff like that, it really means it to me, it really meant that you kind of have that mentality where you think, well, hockey belongs in only places where they can thrive. Right. Well, says who? I mean, look at the 4 teams that we have in the conference finals right now. Vegas is one. What's the difference between Vegas and Phoenix other than about 350, 400 miles, you know? So, and that was even coming from, it might be a possibility to have exactly what Ali says here, the Utah Coyotes, you know, that being that a possibility.
That's my thing. If they change the name and the logos, I will be.
Oh, because they have the best branding in the NHL. I mean, it's an absolute truth.
Did you see social media? They said if this gets 20,000 likes, and this is after the vote failed already. They said if this gets 20,000 likes, we'll review our new rink plans. And then like the next day, they posted like, here it is, because they got the likes. And when you clicked on it, they literally rickrolled their entire. It's so bad. Like, and I don't know if that person got fired, because I did hear now there is the Coyotes social media position is open online, but it was like you could click on their new rink plans and it took you to a 10-hour video of the Rickroll video. So it's their social media. I imagine they're just like, screw it. Like they were like, we're not going to be coming back. So why not? But yeah, I mean, at the same time, and they're looking at other cities in Arizona, like Mesa and stuff like that. So Phoenix is the other thing. The owner of the Suns just bought that rink, and it was fitted for a hockey rink originally, but there was vision issues. So there was obstructions that were a problem, and they just like dumped like $500,000 into this rink to make it better for the basketball team. And they would have to dump a ton more money into it should they put the hockey rink in there. But I guess there is discussion of building just a whole new facility for both basketball and hockey,
which again I'm not opposed to,
and that's a lot of money. I mean, billionaires can go broke too eventually.
That's true, but I mean, I'm sure. I mean, Gary Bettman, that's, you know, the Coyotes are his brainchild, right? I don't think he would let in a million years something happen to the Coyotes unless it benefited him,
especially when,
you know.
they have a following, and they're just on the cusp. They've done everything right with a full-blown rebuild. And what's sad is, what if they go do what the Nordiques did and they suck ass for 25 years and go somewhere else, and they might win a cup in 7 or 8 years, even in 5 or 6 years. And could you imagine them leaving and then winning a cup somewhere else? It's not going.
Parading a Stanley Cup around Salt Lake City.
Yeah, but everybody wants to go back up to Canada. They're not going. Like, this isn't the second coming of the Nordiques. It's just not. But it could have effects if they moved somewhere. It could affect division stuff. So that is a curious thing. And it also could affect, people might start bouncing. People are pissed. People like Shane Doan, if they leave. Who knows? And then that also, maybe we could get Clayton Keller. I don't know. His dad's apparently really pissed off. I don't know if you saw that too.
Well, he also claimed he was hacked on Twitter, so I don't know what to believe.
Oh, Dad, anymore. It's okay to say exactly what everyone else is thinking. But
there you go.
It's curious though, because guys like them, I wouldn't mind having Clayton Keller, and I don't think he would mind.
I mean, I wouldn't either. I would not complain in the slightest.
And so then the last, but most important of all hockey land is Toronto. So they did you listen to the Shanahan discussion? And I mean,
I did not. I honestly I say burn it to the ground, start new. Honestly, that's my opinion.
Themselves on fire. I mean, they're all.
Yep.
So Dubas came out and said that he didn't know if he would come back because of family issues. That if he was gonna be in a GM position, it was gonna be in Toronto. And apparently, he had already had a contract on the table from Shanahan for this. And Shanahan came out after this, after they fired Dubas, and basically said, we told him that we didn't want him to do a public discussion, and he did. And they rescinded their offer after that that Dubas press conference. And because Dubas did that, and Dubas sent his agent to send a new contract for more money. So Shanahan basically was like, he just changed his mind. He's like, if you don't want to do this and you want more money, like, he just kind of went sour on him, and then they fired him. So he overplayed his hand, and it's kind of a really weird situation.
Well, and then as soon as that happened, you heard all this stuff that Dubas said about how Shanahan was holding him back from making certain transactions and moves. And it was like, because my thing was like, what could have happened in Toronto had Shanahan said, yes, but be smart,
There's a fine line in allowing them the power to. You can't give them a little bit of power, but then expect full success and call it their baby if you've been limiting, what they can do. But also the core four being way overpaid. That's a lot of that does come down on Dubas. So I don't know. It's all we're going to be talking about forever. I mean, in all reality, and I surround myself with a lot of Leafs news because the chaos is so much fun when it's not mine, but the Avs are just so boring compared to all these other teams, it's interesting because
we play our hand the way it's supposed to be played.
Right.
We follow the rules.
Very well could have been our GM. I mean, there was he interviewed with the Avs.
That's right.
I think it would have been Sakic moved up earlier, and Dubas. I mean, it's a very interesting concept, but I think Dubas has a lot left to give. I'm curious. We'll see if he goes wins. But yeah, I don't know if you have any other random tidbits, but it seems like every team has something to talk about except for us. The playoffs have been insane. Overtime after overtime. Did you make it through the last?
I stopped it after, let's see, because everything else has been one overtime except for that first one with Carolina, Florida. I stopped after 3 overtimes because I couldn't take it anymore. And almost went a full 4 overtimes. Had Tkachuk finally said enough, and
I know, thank God,
and ran into the locker room.
Yeah,
so it's been. I bet you this trend continues. Honestly,
and that's what
wouldn't surprise
every
me.
Game gone into overtime.
Every game so far has gone to overtime, and I believe it's tied right now still with the Canes and the Panthers. Let's check.
Oh, is that on already? I keep
that
forgetting.
Is on, and I think it might even be 0-0. Let's look here. Yep, 0-0. Just started the second period, so
madness.
We might have another overtime on our hands. So why not?
I can't even imagine. Like Bobrovsky, did you see that he loses like 20 pounds a game?
Oh, just crazy.
It sounded like that's in a normal game. So yeah, these guys are crazy. It's a lot better hockey than I would have anticipated if you would have told me the 4 Southern teams are doing this. But I mean, Vegas is real, man. I didn't think that they were real, but I guess they are. But it helps when you're like 13 million over the cap too. That helps a little, but
it does help a little
to see how far can Aiden Hill carry them. Is he a rookie? I mean,
no, he was on San Jose last year.
Was he? Okay. So, but I mean, he's certainly not and then how far can Freddie Anderson's knees takes him? We'll see who dies first, because Freddie Anderson's knees are the rookies, the new guys. Yeah, I think that's about everything I got for today.
Yeah, I don't have anything else either. So
let's see. All right, you got the buttons for me. So yeah,
I got the buttons.
We'll be back next week. We haven't decided yet. I don't know, Nick, whatever you're thinking, maybe every week or every other week coming up, especially as we approach the draft. Things should get more exciting. When we start getting more answers on the Avs, things will definitely pick up. But we will be posting. You can hit us up on Twitter at Clusterpuck Podcast. We've got our Gmail that neither one of us seem to ever know. The Clusterpuck Podcast at gmail.com. We're on the MHRT network. You can find us on Facebook if you're looking for them. Otherwise, we've got our own at the Clusterpuck Podcast. Thanks for listening. This has been a long one too. I know the last few have been long, but keep hitting us back. We'll have more previews out too for what we're going to be discussing a little more in depth as the summer goes on, so you can have a better idea of what's going on without games to follow. So yeah, I hope everyone has a good weekend and a good night.
Go Avs, go everybody.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. Hustle hard, hustle.